بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لحظة. 1 second. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. أسأل الله تبارك وتعالى أن يجعل نياتنا خالصة لوجهه الكريم. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. I pray that everyone is well. May Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala raise your ranks and your status and make you all among as-salihin, among the righteous. We reached up to page to B 7.0. On al-ijma'. So we mentioned that the primary sources of Islamic law, according to Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. And Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah, they are the Ash'aris, the Maturidis in Aqidah. They are the Hanafis, the Malikis, the Shafi'is, and the Hanbalis in fiqh, and the people of Tasawwuf. That's Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. As Imam al-Haddad mentioned in his book, Risalatul Mu'awwana, the Book of Assistance, that Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah, they are the Ash'aris. And then he described who the Ash'aris were, and then at the end, he said the Maturidis are the same in this regard. That was the great Mujaddid of his time, Imam Abdullah bin Alawi al-Haddad, the great Hafiz and linguist, al-Hafiz al-Imam Muhammad Murtada al-Zabidi, the commentator on the Ihya of Imam al-Ghazali. He mentioned in the section of Al-Aqaid in the Ihya, he said, whenever you say Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah, what is intended by that is Al-Ash'ira wal Maturidiyya, the Ash'aris and the Maturidis. So in the common understanding of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah, it is this way, this methodology. And I encourage myself and I encourage you to stick to that, insha'Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. So we talked about, according to Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah, the primary sources of Islamic law are Al-Quran, As-Sunnah, Al-Ijma', and Al-Qiyas. So here, these are the sources of Islamic law. And now the author, rahimahullah ta'ala, is going to talk about al-ijma', consensus. Because remember, we mentioned when we talked about the ijma' of the Sahaba, that the ordinary person among them would ask the learned person among them about the legal rulings. They would answer them without supplying the detailed evidences for those rulings. Bismillah, let us begin.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. The author, may Allah Ta'ala have mercy on him, said, B 7.0 Scholarly Consensus. Ijma. B 7.1 Abdul Wahab Khalaf. Rahimahullah. Scholarly consensus, ijma', is the agreement of all the mujtahids defined at O22.1 section D of the Muslims existing at one particular period after the Prophet's death, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah Ta'ala bless him and give him peace, about a particular ruling regarding a matter or event. It
So
may
the ijma, the consensus, is the agreement of the mujtahidun scholars. So it is important when we speak about consensus, we also identify who are al mujtahidun, who are those top ranking scholars. And here it is important for us to begin to expand our Islamic knowledge to the point where we take legal experts as evidences in our legal rulings. For us as common people, our opinions are not weighty in and of themselves. Rather, when they are taking and following the opinions of those mujtahid scholars. So for us, what I think personally about religious judgments has no weight unless it is in agreement with previous mujtahid scholars. Is this point clear? Hence, that's why layman, common person, follow madhahib. Is this point clear for everyone? Good. Okay, bismillah. Continue.
It may be gathered from this that the integral elements of scholarly consensus are four, without which it is invalid.
Mhm.
A. That a number of mujtahids exist at a particular time.
So those mujtahidun, they exist in the time of the event that you have mujtahids, right? So when you don't have mujtahidun, then the consensus cannot be considered because it's the judgment of non-experts. Now,
B. That all mujtahids of the Muslims in the period of the thing or event agree on its ruling, regardless of their country, race, or group, though non mujtahids are of no consequence.
here, keep this uh, in your mind. Whenever we talk about legal rulings, non-mujtahids are of no consequence in terms of something being binding on us. Keep this in mind. Whenever we're talking about legal rulings, non-mujtahids are of no consequence, no consideration in terms of what is right and wrong, unless those non-mujtahids are mentioning the judgments of mujtahids. This is very important. So if we can get to this state in our understanding, then we can make progress because now we have resources for expert legal opinion. Mm.
C. That each mujtahid present his opinion about the matter in an explicit manner, whether verbally by giving a formal legal opinion on it, or practically by giving a legal decision in a court case concerning it. D. And that all mujtahids agree on the ruling, for if a majority of them agree, consensus is not affected, no matter how few those who contradict it, nor how many those who concur.
And here you're going to find, and I want us to get in mind, when we study that we're referring to reliable statements of the Mujtahidun scholars that was related to them with continuous chains of narration. So, in everything we're talking about, we're concerned with two issues: to establish legal rulings or creedal statements or tenets of faith or spiritual practice. Has those statements, those beliefs, reached us with unbroken chains of transmission from whole groups to whole groups to whole groups to our day? This is a very important element in our studies. Has those opinions reached us with whole groups of whole groups from whole groups with an unbroken chain back to those mujtahid scholars or back to imams? This is a very important process. Now I want to say something to us on the practical level. On the practical level, we might not be able to identify that, which is the case of most of us, because we have not had that kind of access. So, and a lot of us don't have access to Arabic sources, to no scholars, and they don't give us all that. But among us must be some who have that ability. And that group for us becomes our source of reference to point us in that direction. Is this point clear? I mean, this is the situation we find ourselves in. Whether we like it or not, it's our reality. In other words, there are not mujtahid among us. We don't have access to what we need, the tools to distinguish all these things. So we have to have some people that have some abilities to point us in that direction. That's our situation. That's our reality. Now, go ahead.
When the four necessary integrals of consensus exist, the ruling agreed upon is an authoritative part of sacred law that is obligatory to obey and not lawful to disobey. Nor can mujtahids of a succeeding era make the thing an object of new ijtihad, because the ruling on it, verified by scholarly consensus, is an absolute legal ruling which does not admit of being contravened or annulled. B7.3. The proof of the legal authority of scholarly consensus is that just as Allah Ta'ala Most Glorious has ordered the believers in the Quran to obey Him and His Messenger, وسلم, so too He has ordered them to obey those of authority, Ulu al-Amr, among them, saying, O you who believe, obey Allah Ta'ala and obey the Prophet and those of authority among you. Quran Surah 4, Ayah 59. Such that when those of authority and legal expertise, the mujtahids, agree upon a ruling, it is obligatory in the very words of the Quran to follow them and carry out their judgment. And Allah Ta'ala threatens those who oppose the messenger and follow other than the believer's way, saying, whoever controverts the messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, after guidance has become clear to him and follows other than the believer's way, we shall give him over to what he has turned to and roast him in hell, and how evil an outcome. Quran Surah 4, Ayah 115.
Imam Shafi'i pointed that this is this is the strongest evidence in the Quran for scholarly consensus. Because Allah said that whoever follows a way other than the believers, in other words, the way of the believers are correct or binding on the rest of us. Now, go ahead.
B7.4. A second evidentiary aspect is that a ruling agreed upon by all the mujtahids in the Islamic community, Ummah, is in fact the ruling of the community, represented by its mujtahids, and there are many hadiths that come from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam Allah Ta'ala bless him and give him peace, as well as quotes from the companions which indicate that the community is divinely protected from error, including his saying, Allah Ta'ala bless him and give him peace, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Number one, my community shall not agree on an error. Number two,
So
Allah
here,
Ta'ala.
this hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and there are many hadith in this meaning, saying that the ummah of Sayyidina Muhammad will not agree, will not have consensus on something that is wrong. So whenever that consensus is mentioned by those mujtahid scholars, it is representative of the belief of the majority of the nation through their scholars who are the people of authority.
Number two, Allah Ta'ala is not want to make my community concur on misguidance.
And this hadith is related by Imam al-Hakim in his Mustadrak.
Number three, that which the Muslims consider good, Allah Ta'ala considers good.
Mhm.
B7.5 per narrator. Another hadith that scholars quote.
Translator. The N is the translator.
I'm so sorry. Per translator. Apologies. Another hadith that scholars quote in connection with the validity of scholarly consensus is the following, given with its commentary. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah Ta'ala bless him and give him peace, said, Allah Ta'ala's yet is over the group, and whoever dissents from them departs to hell.
And this hadith is related by At-Tirmidhi, where Allah said, where the Prophet ﷺ said, Yad Allahi ala al-jama'a wa man shadda shadda ila nar.
Allah Ta'ala's yet is over the group.
So this is a commentary on this hadith, right? So there are books that explain hadith. Here is a very important thing. Whenever we read hadith books, remember that those books were explained by hufaz, by masters of hadith narration, giving us a proper understanding based on a collective understanding of the different hadith and verses of the Quran and consensus to give us the proper understanding of those hadith. And we should have recourse whenever we want to understand hadith books. We want to have recourse to the scholars who explain those books, not to our own interpretations without scholarly expertise. Likewise, when we want to understand the verses of the Quran, we should have recourse to the commentators on the Quran, the classical masters of Quranic commentary, and what they said in regards to these verses, not just our own opinion.
Al-Azizi, rahimahullah, Munawi, rahimahullah, says, meaning his protection and preservation of them, signifying that
Al-Munawi was a great hafiz of hadith who explained and wrote on the field of hadith and wrote in the field of hadith. Now,
signifying that the collectivity of the people of Islam are in Allah Ta'ala's fold, so be also in Allah Ta'ala's shelter, in the midst of them, and do not separate yourselves from them. The rest of the
here he explained Yadullah, right, as meaning hifthuhu, it's his protection and his preservation of them. So yet here he explained as protection. So and really the meaning would be Allah's protection and preservation is over the majority of the Muslim nation. Now,
the rest of the hadith, according to the one who first recorded it, per
meaning Tirmidhi,
translator Tirmidhi, rahimahullah, is, and whoever dissents from them departs to hell, meaning that whoever diverges, from the overwhelming majority concerning what is lawful or unlawful, and on which the community does not differ, has slipped off the path of guidance, and this will lead him to hell.
And here I want you to understand something. When we say Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah, that is the majority of the Muslim nation. Every departure from Ahl-Sunnati wal Jama'ah does not entail disbelief. Can we put that up? Every departure, every single departure from Ahl-Sunnati wal Jama'ah does not uh, necessitate or entail disbelief. Can we put that up? This is a point I think many misunderstand. Every departure, every single departure from Ahl-Sunnati wal Jama'ah does not necessitate disbelief. So in some cases, the departure from the way of Ahl-Sunnati wal Jama'ah is disbelief. And likewise, in some cases, it's innovation, but not disbelief. This is a very important point because sometimes when we clarify issues, the person may misunderstand that you're calling someone a disbeliever. And that's not always the case, right? So when we define Ahl-Sunnati wal Jama'ah, that doesn't necessarily mean that others are not Muslim, right? That's not always what is intended, right? That's not always what is intended. So please, if you have that in your mind, don't. Realize that some issues are disbelief, and we don't go to one extreme to say even every departure is okay. No, some departures are kufr. If you depart from Ahl Sunnah, and this it requires you not being a Muslim. Then there are other issues that you're sinful, but you still remain a Muslim. And there's a distinction between the two, which requires learning, right? And learning the cases where that is the case and that is not the case. Go ahead.
B7.6 per translator. In addition to its general interest as a formal legal opinion, the following serves in the present context to clarify why other than the four Sunni schools of jurisprudence do not necessarily play a role in scholarly consensus. Abdul Rahman Ba'alawi, rahimahullah, Ibn Salah, reports that there is scholarly consensus
Ibn
on
Salah is a hafiz of hadith. He wrote the famous book, The Introduction in the Science of Hadith.
reports that there is scholarly consensus on its being unlawful to follow rulings from schools other than those of the four imams, meaning in one's personal works, let alone give court verdicts or formal legal opinions to people from them, because of the untrustworthiness of the ascription of such rulings to the scholars who reportedly gave them, there being no channels of transmission which obviate the possibility of textual corruption and spurious substitutions.
So here, Ibn Salah, who lived in the 7th century, died in the mid 7th century, he narrated, and he was a hafiz and a scholar in the Islamic sciences. He narrated or related the consensus that it's not permissible to follow other than the four madhahib. In one's personal work, in judging court case, one's personal works in judging court cases, or giving fatwa or legal opinion. Why? Because we cannot have unbroken chains of transmission back to those people who made those statements, other than the four schools, where we are sure that there is not no alteration of that opinion. It wasn't related from generation to generation to generation to generation. Now,
The Zaydis, for example, who trace themselves to Zayd ibn Ali ibn Hussein, rahimahullah, per translator, son of Ali and Fatima, radiallahu anhumma, the the beatitude of Allah Ta'ala be upon them, despite the fact that Zayd was one of the imams of the religion and a renowned figure well qualified to give guidance to those seeking it, his followers identified him with extreme permissiveness on many questions, ascriptions based on failure to check as to what his positions actually were, per translator by naming the intermediate transmitters and establishing their reliability. It is quite otherwise with the four schools, whose imams, Allah Ta'ala reward them, have spent themselves in checking the positions of their schools, explaining what could be rigorously authenticated as the position of the person it was attributed to, and what could not be. Their scholars have thus achieved safety from textual corruption and have been able to discern the genuine from the poorly authenticated.
وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Inshallah, we'll stop there today. So let me take a few of these questions quickly. Allahu Akbar. Bismillah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you a speedy recovery and remove all pain, Sister Tahira. Insha'Allah ta'ala. May Allah give you well-being. Allahu Akbar. I got called a fool yesterday for challenging an ibadah without evidence. I asked for a hadith that was traced back to authentic sources. I would have done it another way, and it will help you. If someone is asking you to do an act of worship, just ask them according to which madhab was this. Don't ask for a hadith, because a hadith itself doesn't mean it's understood properly, right? So your best as a common person is ask for the position of the mujtahidun, which are within the four schools. Is that act of worship valid in one of the four schools? If yes, we follow it. If not, we reject it, regardless if you give me a hadith or not. Hadith evidence in and of itself is not a proof. Is this point clear? Hadith evidence is not a proof in itself. Because you present a hadith, that doesn't mean that's evidence. You may misunderstand the hadith. It may be abrogated. It may have details that you don't know about in other hadith. So because someone gives you a hadith, that's not an evidence. Rather, for common people, we follow the mujtahidun scholars. If it is valid according to one of the four schools, it's valid. If not, we don't pay it any attention. Which is the answer to your question here. Hadith evidence is not a proof. I'm not a mujtahid. Maybe you misunderstanding the hadith. Maybe there's other things why the mujtahidun didn't say that. So we should refer to the mujtahidun. And the mujtahidun's opinions are known within the four schools. No, ijma is not in every generation. Ijma happens at the level, the generation of the event. So if there is a case by which the mujtahidun at any point in time agree, succeeding mujtahidun can't change that. It's already the agreement of the Muslim nation. So it doesn't have anything to do with at each generation. Once ijma is established at any level of any generation, from that point on, it's a case of ijma. Hmm. Allahu Akbar. Good. MashaAllah. I want to say this to you, inshallah. May Allah make us all sincere and may Allah accept from us, Brother Talib, inshallah. Here, I'm discovering something. I'm telling you about myself. I'm discovering something more and more. What was your question, Anissa? I didn't see it. Can you put it back up? I missed it, so I don't have to go looking all over. Sometimes we spend unnecessary time trying to convince people who don't want to be convinced. Sometimes we, I'm included in the we, spend unnecessary time trying to convince people who don't want to be convinced. We shouldn't waste our time doing that. When we realize someone has an opinion and they're sticking to that opinion and that's what they want to do, you advise them and keep it moving. We're wasting time trying to convince people that do not want to be convinced. It's a waste of time, right? And we could spend better time educating those who want to be educated. You follow? And I'm realizing myself, I do that often. I waste time with people who they don't want to learn. They're not interested. They don't want to be convinced. It's not like they don't see your point. It's not like they don't understand. They don't want to understand. So stop wasting your time with them and spend that time more with people who want to learn. And that's an advice for myself and for you. Is it disbelief if a Muslim refuses to acknowledge the hadith and only follows the Quran? If the person denies all of the hadith and says, I only follow Quran, this is kufr. This is disbelief. If they deny some hadith for legitimate reasons, this is not disbelief. So the question becomes, what hadith are they denying? If they're denying hadith altogether, this is disbelief. They're not Muslim. But if they deny certain reports for various reasons, if those reasons are legitimate, then this is not disbelief. It's perfectly permissible. So that's how I would answer that. Because sometimes you do reject hadith, right? Or don't acknowledge it because it's not valid. Sometimes the hadith could be fabricated. Sometimes the hadith could be weak. Sometimes the hadith is being used as an evidence for something it's not an evidence for. And in this case, it's going to be, one's going to refuse to acknowledge it for what it's being used for. That's not, if refusing hadith, it's refusing to follow the misuse of hadith, to use hadith in its improper place. So there's two different things. Tayyib, any other questions? So you're going to notice me in my classes that we're having less engagement with people who give me the feeling, because it's only my feeling. I could be right, I could be wrong, but the feeling I get that they're not really trying to learn, they're just interrupting. Or they just, I don't know what they're doing, but it's not what we're doing. So you're going to notice me ignoring a lot. So if you see me sometimes ignore something, I would suggest you do the same thing. You'll notice that he's ignoring that, right? Don't you engage. We have a lot to learn. We have a lot of information that we need to get out. We have a lot of information that we need to process. We have a lot of things that we didn't know that we need to discover, and a lot more. We have research. We have a lot of stuff to do. So, and we don't have a lot of time to do it. So we have to be cautious and mindful of how we spend our time and what we do with it. Like, we don't get up this early in the morning to waste our time. Allahu Akbar. Y'all follow me? Abdul Wali, I answered that question. I just answered the question. If you didn't understand the answer for that, I don't know what to tell you. I just answered your question. You should have understood from the question I answered the answer to your question. I gave the answer. If someone denies all of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ outright, and they say we only follow the Quran, such a person is a disbeliever. That's all I will say about that. MashaAllah. Okay. Insha'Allah ta'ala, we will, tomorrow, I'm going to uh, suggest to you some books that you need to read on your own and with us, that I suggest, and I'm going to put them out, that you get them. It will help you in the process of our studies, right? Some of you may have them, some of you don't. And I would suggest that you have them in your library if you're following my classes, because all of them will be used, inshallah ta'ala. So, but I just got to check stock before I put them out. So tomorrow, I will put one or two books that I suggest all of you get. The first of them you should all have, but if you don't, you definitely need. Is this book in Aqidah? That's one book. This book in Aqidah, it is a commentary on the Creed of Imam Tahawi. We covered it, but we will cover it again. So everyone needs this book. If you're in these classes, you need that book. The other book, I'll put it 3 times so you can follow it before I change books. So this is one book. And we will be referring to it regularly in our classes. It will be a constant reference book. And the other book is what we're reading now, is The Reliance of the Traveler. Everyone, all of these books are in stock. Everyone should have this book. No matter what madhab you follow, if you're following my classes, you need this book. If you're following my classes, no matter what madhab you follow, you need these books to follow my classes. So you follow what I'm saying, you're able. It isn't one of the core criticism of the Salaf. When you say Salaf philosophy, you meant the Wahhabi philosophy that is also called Salafi philosophy. Is that what you're talking about? So we're talking about the same thing. When you say Salaf philosophy, what you meant to say is the Wahhabi who call themselves Salafi philosophy. Is that what you're talking about? Let's make sure we're talking about the same thing before I answer. So you mean the Wahhabi who calls themselves Salafi, their philosophy, or you talking about as Salaf, the first three generations? What are you talking about, Brother Garrett? I need to know exactly what you're saying because I can't answer if you're saying something other than what I think you're saying. So I give you the chance to clarify. What are you talking about? Because when you say Salaf, I think in something different. If you're talking about the Wahhabi so-called Salafi ideology, that's something different. So I don't know which one you're referring to. So inshallah, if you can define what you're talking about. Okay, good. So one of the core criticism of the Wahhabi Salafi philosophy is definitely their understanding of what makes a person a believer and what takes one out of Islam, right? So there are points that they have that they consider shirk or worshiping other than Allah, that Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah do not consider it as shirk. There are other beliefs they have that they say are binding on believers that Ahl Sunnah totally disagree with. So that issue, what they consider as kufr, disbelief, or shirk, is a criticism, yes. And there are issues. These are issues like the issue of at-tawassul or at-tabarruk and these issues, right? Which built their interpretation of the attributes of Allah. All of these issues are core criticisms. As for calling someone a disbeliever because they disagree with us, I'm assuming you mean al-asha'ira wa maturidiyya, that's not permissible just solely because someone disagree. It depends. What's the disagreement? So it's not just you disagree with us. What do you disagree us about? Ahl Sunnah. When you disagree with Ahl Sunnah, what is the case? Not just in general. Do you follow my point? So we have to actually go to the issues, not the names. What is the case that you disagree about? Why do you disagree with that? And then from that point, you can make a judgment. Not just general, open, you disagree with us, you're a disbeliever. No, you disagree with us, you're wrong. No. What is the case? What is the thing you disagree about? How did you get there? And then there are details. Do you follow? You cannot make unrestricted judgments of disbelief on anyone without a reason. And the reason should be clear, and that reason should necessitate disbelief. If it doesn't, then you can't make such a judgment. People always make judgments. That's not an issue. Is that judgment right or is that judgment wrong? Now, okay. So inshallah, if you just keep going, we will get into all those. Inshallah, we'll discuss all these issues of the creed in more detail, right? And I would prefer you learn the issue instead of just looking for microwave judgments. I would prefer that you learn the issue instead of just looking for microwave judgments. What do I mean, microwave judgments? You just say something and then you can say, yeah, see, Imam Amin called everyone who don't agree with him a kafir. Why don't you learn the issue? Why don't you learn the issue well? And then you don't have to ask me the judgment. Once you learn the issue well, you'll know the judgment yourself. Do y'all get my point? Stop looking for microwave Islam. It doesn't work. It hasn't helped us. We need to learn our religion well. So let's learn our religion well. Let's learn the cases, learn the issues, learn the details, and inshallah, then you'll know yourself. Stop looking for me to live your Islam or for someone else for that matter. No, you have to learn. You have to learn. Stop trying to have someone do it for you. Let someone help you do it. Right? You follow my point? Let someone help you do it. That would be better. So that when you make a judgment, you're not making a judgment based off what I say. You actually learned the judgment and you was able to research it. I gave you the tools so that you can see the judgment yourself. But the one who actually understood the judgment was you. I just supplied you with the tools to do it. You follow? Is this point clear with me? We're quick to look for controversy. Don't look for controversy. Learn. Learn so we can avoid controversy. Once we know the judgments and we know the religious rules, then we don't have to worry about all that stuff. May Allah help us, right? I have to make a change. We've come too far to go backwards. Imam Amin Muhammad, has to make a change. We've come too far to go backwards. We can't do it. I'll say it one more time. Imam Amin needs to make a change because we've come too far to go backwards. Y'all follow me? And I realize that. I have to change the way I'm doing things or we're going to go backwards. We came too far for that. We can't do it. No. If someone wants to stay in elementary school, let them stay there. We have to go on to the university. We can't keep playing kindergarten games. We can't. We have to grow up. Oh, we have to grow up. And we got elders. I want to say for you young people, and I'm among them, for us young people, I want to give us some advice. And young people, I'm saying 60 and under, right? For young people, I'm saying 60 and under. If you're 60 and under, you're among the young people. We have elders among us who are 60 and above. They're trying to get their deen right. They don't have time to play with us. I'm going to repeat that. If you're on this platform and you're 60 and under, you're considered a youngster. And there are those elders among us who are 60 and above. They don't have time to play our silly games. So respect them, right? Don't waste their time. They're trying to learn their religion. If you want to do something else, go do it somewhere else. Like for real, be respectful to our elders. They're trying to learn. They've been through so many different movements and groups, and they see something beneficial here. Don't ruin it for them. Don't waste their time. Let's respect our elders. If our passion desires us, and I'm young, my passion want to mix it up too. Sometimes put that to the side because realize there's some elders trying to learn. And we have to make it as easy and as facilitated as possible for them. So let's not waste their time with nonsense. Barakallahu bikum wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.